Hi, I'm Leonard Davis with the Newport Beach Historical Society, and today we are interviewing Homer Bludau, a former city manager and one-time Citizen of the Year. Is that right?
It is.
And I'd like to know where you came from originally, and a little bit about your early life and what brought you to Newport Beach.
Okay, I was born in San Antonio, Texas in 1946. And actually grew up in the country about 60 miles south of San Antonio. My father was an elementary school principal in the country. So I had a rural childhood and went to college at what was then known as Southwest Texas State in San Marcos, Texas. Now it's known as Texas State University. I was in Air Force ROTC, so I went into the Air Force upon graduation, and I spent 5 years in the Air Force, mostly stationed at Davis Mountain in Tucson, Arizona. That's where I kind of decided that I'd like to become a city manager. It sounded like an interesting career. I did get 2 masters.
Now, what caused you to decide? I mean, that's kind of an unusual career path.
Well, it is. I was in student government both in high school and in college. So that kind of piqued my interest. And I always kept up with what was going on in local affairs and in the federal government. So it just kind of seemed that it was one of the few things that really interested me. So I went to the University of Arizona after I got out of the Air Force and got masters in both urban planning and public administration. And then I spent 3 years working in Yuma, Arizona, for the city of Yuma and for the city manager there. And then I got my first city manager job in a little town in the San Joaquin Valley, Avenal. It's not close to any place. It's a town of about, it was a town of about 5,000 then. And I was city manager, their first city manager. They just incorporated. So I learned a lot there because I had to do so much in terms of hiring people and coming up with ordinances and resolutions. And I really learned a lot at that small town. And then I became city manager in Rialto in San Bernardino County. So that was about 55,000 at that time. I think it's over 100,000 now. And I was there just 3 years, and then I was hired by the city of Coronado, and I was city manager there for 11 years. And I felt like I still had one more job in me, and I felt like I was kind of getting a little stale in Coronado, dealing with the same people and the same issues over and over again. So I applied for the Newport Beach city manager job. It came open at a good time for me, and I was lucky enough to be successful in being hired in 1999. Now,
did you move here to Newport Beach when you got the job? Or?
I did. As a matter of fact, the city charter required the city manager to live here.
I didn't realize that.
So I have lived here ever since 1999, and that requirement is no longer legal. You can't require employees to live a certain place, maybe within a certain radius, like firefighters. You can, but I've always wanted to live in the city that I was the manager of, get a better sense 24/7 of what's going on in the community.
And did you move here, or did you live in another house first? Or?
Well, I actually lived in the Bluffs. I bought a place in the Bluffs and lived there about 8 years, and then I met my wife, and we got married in 2006, and she had this house here. So,
what's her name?
Her name is Janet Bludau.
In 2006, and then this was her house already. So.
So it was a good deal, both with her and the house.
There you go.
And the backyard.
Absolutely. So you were our manager from 99 to what year?
2009.
So for 10 years, And what would you say are the highlights of your tenure in that job?
Well, when I think
that was back when, what's his name? Don was mayor then during that time, Don Webb?
Don Webb was, well, I'll wait till this. Don Webb was actually the public works director. and he worked for me until he retired, and then he ran for the city council and became my boss.
Yeah, okay. When you came to Newport Beach, you were, Don Webb was the public works director, and so he worked for you, and you were the manager.
He did. That lasted probably until about 2006 is my guess, and then he ran for the city council and was elected, so he became one of my bosses, which is kind of an unusual turn of events. But Don was great to work with as a city manager, both as a public works director and also as a council person. I have a lot of respect for him, and nobody knew the town any better than Don because he walked all of the streets in the city. I
remember that. Yeah, because he said he became mayor in '06 because that was the centennial year. So
that's right. So it was probably about '04.
Okay. And so what were some of the, like I said, what were some of the highlights of your time as city manager? What projects do you think that you did that you're most proud of, and so forth?
Well, in looking back, when I first came to the city in 1999, the city council was waiting for the city manager to come in so we could negotiate the annexation of the Newport Coast.
We were talking about the negotiation to annex Newport Coast. How controversial was that? I mean, you know, I know there's been some people who didn't want Newport to grow, but there was all that land they're going to build on it anyway. Might as well be part of Newport or Laguna, or was there an issue with Laguna Beach with that, or?
You know, there wasn't, because that portion of the coast was in our sphere of influence. With a governmental agency, LAFCO, determines what unincorporated areas, what cities would be the natural cities to take them in. So that was a part of our sphere of influence. So we really negotiated with the Irvine Company. More than anybody, because they were the one providing the services. Of course, the county had a fire station there, so it was both with the county and the Irvine Company. And we took over the fire station, but the negotiations with the Irvine Water District is probably lasted a year and a half or so. It took some real negotiating on that one, but we were finally successful. And
what were the stumbling blocks?
Well, the stumbling blocks were really a cost. We wanted to provide the water services to the community, and the Irvine Water District wanted to retain them because they got about 20% of the property tax that was generated from those properties. And we wanted that coming to the city, and they said, well, if you want to pay us for our system, it would be $160 million. And
half a dozen homes will take care of that.
The water district had more money than the city of Newport Beach at that time. They probably still do. It's a very lucrative water district. So we finally reached an accord, and we probably get about 12 to 13% of the property tax off of that by assuming some special district services that now the city provides. But the Irvine Water District actually gets more property taxes off of the Newport Coast than the city of Newport Beach does.
Well, that acquisition changed the whole center point of the city, because you look at a map of the city before that, and that was kind of now where the city hall is pretty much right in the middle of the physical boundaries of the city.
It really did, but there wasn't all that huge a population up there then. It's almost like as soon as the city annexed it, the Irvine Company moved forward with their plans for housing, and it really took off at, over 6 or 8 years. Now, there's a sizable population up there. So we knew that it would change a little bit the nature of the community, because most of those were going to be gated communities, and that's very unlike the rest of the community. But it really made sense service-wise, as far as police and fire, to take that area on rather than them depend upon the county and different special districts. And then we also had the same situation with the Santa Ana Heights. So that was annexed also during my time. It was approximately 2007, I would guess. Again, it was a part of the county, and it was in our sphere of influence. So those people wanted us to annex. And we wanted to annex because we thought it would offer us some protection against the expansion of the airport. So we took that on, and I think it was a very successful annexation. The people were happy. We put a fire station right there in their neighborhood and assumed city services. So I think those were two real positives. Another thing looking back is John Wayne Airport. The original agreement with the county and the city and the organizations that participated in that 1985 settlement agreement, it ran for 20 years, so it expired in 2005. So I was a party to that with the city attorney, Bob Burnham. We negotiated with the county airport director and had got a 10-year extension to that agreement. Now that agreement limits the number of large commercial jets that fly in and out of there each day. It limits the number of passengers.
But that's expired now too, hasn't it?
Well, it has expired since then because that was 2005. It expired in 2015. So now the city has another 20-year agreement. But the one in 2005 was important because it was the first one that we took the position that, okay, since we had the 1985 agreement, this should be grandfathered. And there wasn't any history because there was no other agreement to limit an airport like John Wayne. John Wayne Airport is the most limited airport in the country. There's nothing like it. As a matter of fact, after the 85 agreement, the FAA went to Congress and got Congress to pass legislation prohibiting cities from limiting in any way.
Yeah, Diane
airports.
Dixon was talking about the other day when she gave a talk down at Lita Weil. So it's
a fascinating history.
You talk about it too. So
fascinating history of John Wayne Airport, and of course it has noise sensors that are in the back bay, which is why the planes go up at a steep angle and reduce their noise levels. And they're originally in the 1985 agreement, it actually limited the number of square feet that the terminals could have. We dropped that in 2005 because it really didn't make any difference as long as we could limit the number of passengers and the number of flights in and out of there. So those are two particular ones that come to mind. The city centennial of 2006 is a really fond memory of mine. I think we had a wonderful event as far as celebrating our 100th year history there. And one of the elements of that was the Chamber of Commerce for Corona del Mar had the tile project there. Off of
tell me more about that.
Pacific Coast Highway. Well, they came up with the idea of how best to kind of celebrate the 100th year anniversary, and came to me, and I thought it was a good idea, and it was something that would get a lot of the community people involved, and they could purchase a tile and have it placed there on city property, and would pick up the expenses for doing that. And I participated in it. I have a tile there. It was just one of those.
Has your name on it and things like that?
Well, it does, but it also has my children's name on it.
Who designed the tiles? Was it each person brought their own tile, or did they have somebody to do that? Or
everybody actually went to a place where you could go and actually draw your own tile. It was a commercial operation, so it didn't cost more than probably $50 to do that, and then it was another cost in order to put the tiles up. But I take pride in that, and take my grandson and granddaughter to see the tile there.
See their name there. That's cool.
It's weathered well. One other thing, though, that I look back on, and this isn't something that people would know, but when I first came here, I was a little surprised. It seemed like all of the departments were really strong city departments, but it was obvious they weren't working well together. And the reason for that is I went to lunch with a city manager who had been here from 1970 to from 1980 to 2000. Excuse me, 1970 to 1990.
Okay.
And he said that, he told me, Homer, this is Bob Wynn, he said, Homer, your management style is probably going to be a lot different than mine. In the 20 years I was city manager, I only had 2 department head meetings. One was when I came and one was when I left. Mm-hmm. And that hit me like a ton of bricks because it explained everything, how the departments weren't used to working cooperatively with each other. They were kind of used to working separately and going directly to the city manager. So I instituted a process to where all of the departments in the city would have the same mission statement and the same measurements in terms of how we wanted to provide service to the to the residents of the community. Mm-hmm. And the employees were all in on that. Mm-hmm. I did have some problems with some of the department heads. Mm-hmm. So, but after a couple of years, it was very successful because I incorporated that into evaluations to where everybody on the management team, all the department heads evaluated everybody else, including me. Mm-hmm. And the evaluations were secret as far as where they came from, but it was really good feedback for department heads to understand how they were seen in terms of cooperating from other department heads. And it really did change the culture of the organization over a period of about 3 or 4 years.
Do they still operate that way?
Pardon?
Are they still operating that way?
Yes, they are. I mean, you look at police and fire, all of the city departments have really good working relationships. And in this day and age where so many issues are complex and require more than one department to be involved in dealing with them, it's absolutely required. And I think now the departments really do a great job of working with each other, respecting each other, knowing what the other departments are doing, and working well together without egos.
Okay. Bernie asked me to ask you about Centennial Plaza.
Well, that was...
so that's the thing with the tiles, right?
It is the thing with the tile, yes.
But anything else about that?
No, it was really a part of a large effort. We had a float in 2006 in the Pasadena Rose Bowl Parade. The city actually had a float there. My wife and I attended. There was a bus that went up with Newport Beach residents, I think 2 buses, and we got to sit in the stands, and it was a thrill to watch the float. That was the city of Newport Beach in 2006 come down celebrating our 100th anniversary.
Do you remember who designed the float?
I don't. There are professionals.
There was a guy named Raul Rodriguez that I met once that used to design. I don't know if he did that one or not. You don't know?
I don't think so.
Okay.
There were a number of people, our companies there in Pasadena that you go to and you say, this is how much we can spend. This is kind of our idea for a theme. Now what can you do for us? It was a very nice float. And then that day, we had the Beach Boys coming, and they performed, and also we had a great fireworks show that night. So that day is really strong in my memory. The whole community coming together and celebrating Newport Beach's 100th year anniversary.
Okay, so you stayed on the city manager until 2009?
That's right.
And so what caused you to retire?
I had always thought, since I first became a city manager when I was 35, I don't know why I thought, I would work until I was 63 and then I would retire. I don't know where I get that idea from, but I was able to do that. So I was a city manager in 4 cities for 29 years. And it's not easy being a city manager, and there aren't any cities that are easy for any city managers. I know a number of people say, well, if Newport Beach has a lot of money, it's probably a lot easier there. You just have other issues maybe than other cities, but in cities like Newport Beach, people have high expectations, and they should have high expectations because this is a world-class city. So trying to provide world-class services and in this area, and we should be trying to satisfy people as much as we possibly can. You can't satisfy everybody. You're going to have people on both sides of the fence as far as an issue is concerned. But I was ready after 29 years and ready to let somebody else take over and a younger person take over.
And so then what have you done since then?
Well,
and then you were Citizen of the Year at one point. That was probably after that.
That was in 2017. But when I was city manager, I was on some nonprofit boards like the Environmental Nature Center. I was on that board for 15 years, and I just got off of that board about 5 years ago. And so I am still on 7 or 8 nonprofit or groups or organizations. Also, I've been active in my church, Our Lady Queen of Angels. So it's just enough to get me out in the community and feel like I'm contributing to the betterment of the community and keeping friendships and associations alive. So I am enjoying retirement, and I can be just as busy as I want to be.
And so I guess you said you were 63 when you retired?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm 76 now.
All right. So, and you have grandkids living here?
I don't have any living here. I have 2 grandchildren that live in Corte Madera, which is in the Bay Area. That's where my son and his wife live. I have a daughter and her husband live in Tucson.
Okay, so they come out and visit a lot, I would hope.
They do, and I have 2 brothers and a sister that live around Austin, Texas. So I'm the only family member who escaped Texas.
So do they think you're weird because you live in California now? Or?
Well, I've lived in California a lot longer than I've lived in Texas. I've lived in California since 1980, so it's 42 years. So, but I think I'll always see myself as a Texan rather than a Californian.
Okay. So what do you like to do for fun?
And my wife would say, don't ask him that question. He doesn't know what fun is. But I enjoy reading. I enjoy nature. One of my hobbies is bird watching.
Okay.
I have traveled a couple of times to Alaska, to Canada, to Florida a few times, southern Texas, and my favorite place to see birds is southern Arizona. They have some mountains in southern Arizona where rare birds come from Mexico, and they may nest in the summertime in Arizona. So I have seen over 700...
Do they let them just fly over the border?
They do. They don't stop them. I've seen over 700 different species of birds in the United States and Canada. So that's kind of kept me busy. A number of bird trips where you have guides and you have groups of anywhere from 5 to 15 people, and you go out for 8-10 days.
Have you ever gone down to, say, Australia or South America or Asia to look?
I have not. That really doesn't interest me because I really am interested in birds that could be seen in the United States. Because there are, probably 8,000 bird species worldwide, and the United States probably has about 1,100, and I've seen 800 of them, but some of them are very rare.
Okay. So sailing or the boating part of it?
I never had gotten into the water. I enjoy being around the water, but I never was a boater.
Okay.
Don't tell people that, though.
No,
they'll run me out of town.
Well, I'm not really that much of one either, but it's nice looking at them.
I appreciate people who have nice boats that take me out on.
Exactly. That's what I was just thinking too. In fact, I'm going on one this evening. So let's see. Any other last things that you would want to comment on life in Newport and why we should all be grateful we live here? Well,
Newport has really been good to me in the 23 years now that I have lived here. It was a real blessing for me to get this job. I didn't realize how much I would grow to love the community, and I met my wife here, and we enjoy living here, and we hope we have another 20, 30 years of living here. It is a wonderful place to live, a wonderful community with a lot of wonderful, caring people. And we have great educational facilities, health facilities. It just has everything that you could want a community to have, and yet it's only 85,000, and yet it's like it has everything that a big city would have. So it's a remarkable community, and I've been blessed to be a part of it.
Any concerns or warning bells that you would want to let us know about? What should we worry about to keep our city like it is in the future? What problems do we?
I think the biggest thing to be concerned about is the state of California. Okay. And how they are taking authorities away from local governments that local governments have had for years and years and years and years. For example, the state is basically doing away with residential zoning, single-family zoning, to where now you can put 8 structures on a single-family lot. So it's those kind of things that it seems like every year there's more and more encroachment on what a city can do and how a city can protect its identity and become the city that it wants to be, without being told what kind of city it has to be. That is my biggest concern, the overreach from state government.
Okay. Yeah, I think, I really enjoyed talking to you, and it's been a good interview, and we're lucky that we had a man such as you with all your talents as our city manager. And once again, Homer, I would like to thank you very much for your time and interest in our fair city.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for talking with me.